Many people in the modern world have this problem where their face rests in a position where they look angry or annoyed, and many people know this to be the case but feel powerless to change it. Just smiling in the regular way doesn't solve the problem, but today we'll look at what causes this and how we can actually change it. Earlier in this series I said that we want to keep the tongue low and flat in the mouth with the palate high. If we want to do that, we're going to need to consider the palatine aponeurosis, which is at the roof of our mouth. You may remember from the series on the legs the plantar aponeurosis. While there are differences between aponeuroses, tendons, and fascia, these are all connective tissues. For our purposes, they operate on a very similar principle, which is that we want to keep them taut and not limp. In order to stretch the palatine aponeurosis, we are going to use a concept that is sometimes called the smile behind the eyes. Every time I had this idea described to me in the past, it was always vague. It's supposed to be a subtle kind of smile, but I'd never really seen a clear set of parameters on how to do it. Naturally, it's Jando Masuero who provides us with an intelligible explanation of this concept. Masuero points out that there are different ways to smile. The smile we want to avoid here is the zygomatic smile, which will result in a smile that shows the canine teeth. Instead, we can use the directions to pull the upper lip spot, which is at the edge of the upper lip, back and up towards the ear. We'll define the ear spot as where you hit if you put your finger just superficially into the ear. There are a couple of interesting things about this set of directions. First, it seems this is a contradiction of an earlier set of directions, which was to move the corner of the eye and the upper lip spots forward and up. Those directions are for a genuine movement of the skull and head, and we want to keep those directions in mind when we apply this new set of directions. These new directions are not actually about moving a bone or bony structure. While we do typically direct the movements of bones and bony structures, directions are actually not always about moving bones. This set of directions is to manipulate the muscles of the face in order to pull on the palatine aponeurosis. As we advance in using this system of conscious guidance and control, the directions become more numerous and more complex. Having two nearly opposite directions applied at the same spot allows for a quite nuanced adjustment. These are antagonistic pulls that will pull our fascia in opposing directions and stretch it to be taut. Here we can start to understand why people have a tendency to have a resting face that looks upset or angry. And this is a problem that can crop up as we age as well. What is causing this sad-looking mouth, and why does the zygomatic smile not help? Let's compare the trajectories of the zygomatic smile with this smile behind the eyes. The zygomaticus muscle attaches to the zygomatic bone, which is your cheekbone. That is a very upward trajectory, whereas the smile we want follows a more outward trajectory towards the ear. Our goal will be to stretch the upper lip so that it becomes wider. This is another thing we can consider. We want to widen the upper lip, as most people will find they have a tendency to narrow the upper lip. A zygomatic smile will pull the edges of the upper lip way up, and that can cause a limpness in the center of the upper lip. This lack of engagement in the upper lip will allow the muscles below the lips to pull the corners of the mouth down. This will result in an angry or sad-looking resting expression. If we want to rid ourselves of this habitually upset look, we need to engage this area of the face in the correct way. With the smile behind the eyes, we can bring due tension into the upper lip. At first, you may have to pull more than you think, but remember, we don't need to show the teeth here. We want to pull the upper lip spots apart so that the upper lip widens. Doing this will also help us activate a muscle with an extremely long name. This muscle attaches to the upper lip and goes up along the sides of the nose. By stretching the fascia around the lip, the levator labii can act more efficiently and keep the ali nasi open. The ali nasi are the outer walls of cartilage that help make up the nostrils. F.M. Alexander specifically mentions this problem of collapsing ali nasi multiple times in his first book. Here's one example where he talks about preventing their collapse. Most people, if asked to take a deep breath, will proceed to, I use the words spoken by thousands of people I have experimented upon, suck air into the lungs to expand the chest. Whereas, of course, the proper expansion of the chest, as a primary movement, causes the ali nasi to be dilated and the lungs to be instantly filled with air by atmospheric pressure. What we're doing with this direction to pull the upper lip spot towards the ear spot is activating the buccinator muscle. The buccinator will pull on the pterygomandibular ligament, which will pull on the palatine aponeurosis. The palatine aponeurosis connects the soft palate to the hard palate. So if you want to be able to efficiently move and lift your soft palate, you want this aponeurosis to be taut and not limp. This idea should be used in conjunction with moving the whole head forward and up, as the antagonistic pulls are what will produce the effect we're looking for. So if you want to rid yourself of a resting face that looks upset or angry, you don't want to use the zygomatic smile as your remedy, since that will only encourage limpness in the upper lip. And when you lack in tautness in this area, you will tend to have the corners of your upper lip pulled down when you think you're resting in a neutral face. Instead, you can use this smile behind the eyes in coordination with the other directions we've looked at for the head, neck, torso, and the rest of the body to return tautness to this area of the face and the rest of the body. In the next episode, we'll return to looking at the neck and head more broadly and what happens with them in activity. Now that we have many directions and concepts to consider, observe yourself and see what happens to your head during various activities like walking, sitting, or squatting. Then join me next episode and we'll continue our journey.